Exactly. I totally agree there. Also, just a little side note, he was talking about the planet, the robot. I loved when he talked about it. Like he opened up, oh, I just got this little
I'll
bear.
just go sneak out the back door.
I'll sneak out the back door.
Back door?
Door. Yeah, the miles and miles of machinery in the planet.
In the core of the planet.
Doc, I'll be back. I'm like, where are you going?
They don't know. Down.
Down.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Welcome to the Nerd Taku Podcast, where we watch it so you don't have to. I'm your host, Eli. With me is my co-host, Ben.
Hello, listeners. Happy to be here.
This week, we're reviewing the 2002 Disney action-adventure movie, Treasure Planet. Spoiler warnings ahead. Ben, I ask you every week, are there spoilers?
Of course, my guy. When aren't there?
Exactly. Directors, Ron Clements, John Musker. Main cast, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, David Hyde Pierce, Emma Thompson, Brian Murray. Ben, we're taking a journey. This is 2002, when we have still CD players, no MP3 players. We're still riding on the cruddy ripstick that we got as children. We're riding on a scooter. We're hanging out with the neighbor kids, and this movie comes out. Thanksgiving weekend, 2002. Parents wanted to find a movie for the holiday season so they could take their kids for 2 hours to go and enjoy it. Go enjoy something with their kids. And this film, the nostalgic factor just brings so much joy to me. We were about 8 years old when this movie came out, and it was just such a whimsical adventure time. When you came back to this memory lane, what was your first initial thought coming back to it?
Well, I didn't see this one in theaters, unfortunately. I didn't even know it existed until like 04, 05 when I was shown it for the first time by a close friend of mine in elementary school. But I just love this film. And it's sad that it was so underplayed when it was first released. They decided to release it around the same time that Santa Claus 2 was coming out, James Bond's Die Another Day came out, you had Chamber of Secrets, you had so many other films that were coming out at around the same time that this one just got so lost in that. And it wasn't promoted enough to give it what it deserved. It was a box office flop because they tried to release it around the same time as other really popular films. And so sadly, we won't see any sequels or probably no live action. If any movie deserves a live action, it's this one.
Yes, I totally agree with you. Even the creator, the lead animator for this film, which I have a poster signed downstairs, says if this out of every live action, this one deserves one.
Absolutely. 100% think so. But unfortunately, it was so overshadowed by all these other bigger releases that it got lost in translation. And it really shouldn't have, because it's an amazing story. And I can't wait to get in and dive into this with you because it's worth it. Such a good film.
You know, when you brought up those other films, I forgot about those films. Like Santa Claus 2. I didn't realize Chamber of Secrets came out the same year. It really hurts to see a really well-made film just get like suffocated by the other hits that came out. Oh, it's just sad. It's just really sad to see good work get not the recognition it deserved.
I agree.
On IMDb, Treasure Planet got a 7.2 out of 10. And the synopsis for this film is Jim Hawkins is a teenager who finds the map of a great treasure hidden by a space pirate. Together with some friends, he sets off in a large spaceship shaped like a caravel on his quest. It's a fun adventure. From the synopsis, it's just a good old time, it sounds like. And that's what I felt like it gave. It was a good old time.
I agree, and I can't wait to get into this because it's a fun one.
Yes. But I will say it does it's not perfect. It does come with flaws.
Like every film.
Like every film, this film especially does not come off as a 10. For me, I gave this a 9.
I gave it an 8.75.
I can't wait. So let's begin this journey together. Let's go with plot.
0.75.
I gave it a 0.75. Why could it not get a 1 for you?
Just a few little flaws. The overall plot is great. The overall story is very intriguing, very fun, keeps you in. It's just a boy who feels this sort of passion for adventure ever since he was a kid. He's a teenager in this story, and all he wants is adventure. He's a genius too. He's able to build his own solar sail glider at the age of like 10, very young, and he constantly gets picked up by the police for illegally gliding in illegal fly zones. He just wants the sense of adventure and fun, and when he gets the opportunity by the turtle, I don't remember the pirate's name, but he lands on their platform. He ends up with the chest that has the map on it, and him and Dr. Dobler go on this quest together because he's just as excited to go find Treasure Planet as Jim is. And so they're able to convince Mrs. Hawkins to let him go on this adventure, and it's just a beautiful story throughout. It's just the fact that, number one, why the pirate? I like the idea of the pirate ships because it's taking the original story of Treasure Island and making it into more of a vast galaxy-looking story. It's fun. It's a twist on Treasure Island. It's kind of fun, but I mean, pirate ships in space. What the hell in that factor? Then where the hell is oxygen?
Exactly.
It's just gone. There's no oxygen. They can just fly around. There's no sense of gravity really because he's able to create another. So his original surfer had foot plants in it. It had little straps that he was able to keep the board in place. But when he creates the new one to save the ship from blowing up on Treasure Planet, there's no foot straps, there's no sail. Somehow he's able to just ignite this rocket and stay balanced on this board with no support, no way to keep him on. It's just, there's just a few little things in the story that obviously they want to make a great story, but how do they do that with no oxygen? There's no gravity. Just a few things that mess with your mind as an adult. As a kid, you're just like, wow, it's freaking awesome.
Yeah.
But as an adult, you're like, wait a minute, but how does that work?
Exactly. One thing that I noticed for me about the gravity thing, that they have the technology to make anti-gravity like you can just stay on the ground in
Right.
ships.
It keeps you on the ship.
But I'm like, I'm so confused why I understand why they wanted to keep it like the more Treasure Island-esque style. It was to keep it something close to the book. But if you look at it, Dr. Dobler has a suit that has a helmet, everything. It's basically a spacesuit. Why is he needing? Why does no one else need the oxygen thing? Like, why? Why?
Right. That's what I was wondering. But in this story, he was just swindled into buying that suit.
Yeah.
He didn't need to buy it. But as I was saying, there's just no aspect of oxygen no matter where you are.
Yeah, it was so weird. And I understand it's supposed to be 1800s Victorian styling, but there's robots, there's cyborgs. When you look at it as an adult, you go, all right, what is this, the year 2800, not the year 1800?
Yeah, nothing really matches up with with the timeline they're trying to give, and then I don't know. It's a great story, it's beautiful, but there's just some things in the plot that just
don't make
work.
sense. Yeah. And that's why I gave it a 0.75 as well. Because some of the things just did not make sense. Acting.
That's a 1.
I gave it a 1. I really liked the cast that they brought in. Silver was one of my favorites. Brian Murray, rest in peace. He did a really phenomenal job. I did like Joseph in this. It was for what he did. He was a younger actor at the time, and he did a spectacular job. I think the weakest point for me, just personally, I thought was Martin Short as Ben. I thought sometimes his voice was just a little too, like, it was too much. And I think that was the weakest point in the casting. But overall, I think majority of this cast was just phenomenal, and it deserved a 1.
I just loved it all around. I mean, I don't think there was really any weak point in this cast. I think that Martin Short did an amazing job as a robot who's literally been by himself for God knows how long. How long has he been abandoned on that freaking planet by himself?
I think 100. I think it was 100 years.
It was like 100, 200 years, somewhere around there. He's been there all by himself for a very long time. His brain literally broke.
He has no brain.
No, well, yeah, he has a brain, but he doesn't have his memory chip, right?
Yeah.
So he's just kind of broken. Captain Flint took his memory chip out and left him abandoned on a planet all by his little old lonesome. And so when he finally meets somebody, he freaks out. He's like, "Oh my gosh, there's somebody here to save me. I'm finally free.
Free.
Yay!" And he doesn't know how to socialize with people because it's been 100+ years, and everybody
Yeah.
he was with before were pirates. So they were all, uncivilized people. Everything about them was rugged and mean. So he meets this new person, Jim, completely different from Flint, and kind of trying to create this bond. I think that he did an amazing job. I just the expressions and the way that the way he portrayed his voice was, he's just very happy to finally see people. I just think it was an all around amazing cast. Period. A younger Joseph playing the part that he played. He didn't. It was just. Ooh, I loved it. I did. I can't really pinpoint anything that stuck out because it was just so well rounded and beautiful throughout with every cast member. It was superb.
Character development.
0.75.
I gave it a 0.75.
I felt like overall, the main person who was supposed to progress was Jim. Obviously, he was the main character, strong, needed to be that progression. And there was tons of development in Jim's character. At first, he's a kid who just wants adventure, doesn't care how he gets it, doesn't care about the law. Here's his mom talking about him needing to change, but he doesn't know how. And then that's when the pirate Billy, Bones, that's when he lands there, finds the map. This is when his development starts to happen. He starts to progress in a way that makes him more mature, slowly but surely throughout the film. He finds leadership that he wants to follow through Captain Amelia. He finds a partnership that he feels his father-like figure through Silver, starts to connect with Silver until he finds the betrayal. Then stuff happens, but he shows true progression all the way throughout, which is beautiful. There's not a whole lot of regression in Jim's character. Or he finds a captain he'll happily follow. It's during that solar storm, relying on him to tie the harnesses, get the sails up, get the sails down, all that. His character starts to really build from that point on. And then Silver, amazing development. Starts out as the cyborg hunting Billy Bones so he can get that map. He finds a way to get him and his crew hired for this adventure, and they're planning them to do the mutiny at one point. But he wasn't taking into account that somehow this little cabin boy, Jim Hawkins, was going to come into his life. And Silver started to feel a very strong connection to this boy after Arrow ends up getting sucked into this black hole because one of the crew cut his line. And Jim blames himself because he was supposed to make sure all the lines were secure. Or when the spider-like pirate shows that the line wasn't secure, he feels like it's his fault. And so Silver goes in and starts to comfort Jim. And his character is starting to soften quite a bit. When Silver is telling the crew down in the bottom deck that he will move when it's time to move and that he's not gone soft, all of that is a lie because he has a huge connection to Jim. He's got mixed feelings. He wants to connect with Jim, but he also has spent his entire life searching for this treasure, and he's not going to let anything really get in the way of that. That's where the mutiny happens. That's where Jim and Silver start to kind of disconnect. But then towards the end, when they need to rely on each other to get out of harm's way, away from the planet, that connection starts to build again. And that's why when they do get out and they're sailing back towards the Crescent Moon spaceport, when they're talking down below in the ship, Jim is very happy to let Silver go. Still sees him as a father figure, still loves him. Silver loves Jim, and Silver tries to convince Jim to go with him, to go on adventures all the time. And Jim wants to take him up on that offer, but then he's like, I can't. I got responsibilities at home. That right there shows huge progression in Jim's part.
Yes.
Because he would have happily jumped on that adventure at the very beginning of this story. But come the end of the story, he's gone through all this stuff, and he realizes, you know what? I got to take care of my mom now. She's taken care of me for so long. Now it's my turn. So I can't go with you. And so Silver flies off. They part in good ways. Those two had the biggest development throughout this story. Everyone else's was kind of whatever. Swaying, some development, not really any. I mean, really, Captain Amelia's development was only realizing that Jim was a very big asset to her crew after her crew decides to mutinize. And then Doppler finally grows a backbone in wanting to help Captain Amelia and then finally showing Captain Amelia that he has feelings for her. So there's that. But very small development throughout the rest of the cast, but the strongest is through Jim and Silver. This really was like a 0.8, 0.85, maybe a 0.9, but I can't give it that one, so I had to drop it to its 0.75 because it wasn't all the crew. It wasn't all there.
I agree with you on all your points. Jim and Silver were like the father figure that everyone wanted. It was just a great relationship. They grew and it was blossoming. It was such a beautiful thing. One line that made the development so much better was when they were both running out of the portal when the explosion started to happen near the end of the film. And Jim was like, "Silver, the treasure." And Silver's like, "It's a lifelong obsession. I'll get over it." It was like he understood that life meant more, and having Jim alive was much more important. Like when he was holding the ship and trying to save Jim, he was like toying with himself, and then he's like, Merlin's bad," and let goes of the ship and gets the boy. It's like you could see that Silver was just such a softy and kind-hearted because he knew that this boy, Jim, was more important to him than the gold. And he knew it was a lifelong obsession, but he understood that this relationship he grew with Jim was more important to him. And it was just so good. And like you said, no one else really had development. There was like very minute things, but Jim and Silver's relationship was just so good. For a children's film, it really hit right there. It hit the soul. And for a film that came out in 2002, I wasn't expecting it. No one else was expecting it. It was so good. But that's why, like you said, 0.9, 0.85. Couldn't get that one, so I got to give it the 0.75. Sound and music.
0.75.
I gave it a 0.75.
The main thing to this, I love the music. I love that they actually put the trailer music into the film, unlike Bridge to Terabithia. But I did find that at every adventure sequence, it was the same, almost the same loop of song throughout the film, with very few differences throughout. I
Yep.
loved it. It was enough to connect you. I just wish there would have been more variety. That was my biggest thing. Beautiful sound, beautiful music. Just give us some more variety, please. Because it was the same tune throughout, almost. Just a little variance.
Yeah, it was the dun 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 dun. Yeah, it's just that.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, it's like you just hear different octaves and then like more intensity when different scenes happened. But that was really basically it. Also, shout out to the Goo Goo Dolls for making one of the best bangers of our childhood in that movie. That was such a good song. Oh, that whole scene where they're working on the ship and like Silver's trying to teach Jim how to like work on a boat and all that and do all the manual labor stuff. Such a good song.
Agreed. Very agreed.
So good. But no, variety would have been so much nicer to hear something different. Cinematography and animation.
0.75.
I gave it a 0.75. You know that style that they were trying to do in the early 2000s? It was like 3D and 2D mix mash, like blend. It wasn't really vibing. Like I got a Titan AE vibe where it's like they tried so hard to like blend it. Some of the shots were cool, but you can tell it's very outdated. You can see it. It's not up to standards. And I don't think that was standard back then. I hope it wasn't. With a $140 million budget, it was really some of the shots were cool. Like I'm not gonna lie to you. Some of the shots were really cool in this film. I liked the shot when they came out of the portal and you see the explosion in the background and they're all flying through it like quickly trying to escape. It was really cool. But that animation, just some of the it was very inconsistent and I didn't like it.
Mine is just the fact that it's definitely 2002, early 2000s animation.
Yes.
If you were to show this movie to someone nowadays, a child nowadays, with everything that we've got as far as animation wise and how it's more of a 3D print, more of a just the animation that we have now with the way this early 2000s film is, it's not going to attract the same audience that it was meant for during that time. I loved it. I loved the sequences. I loved the transitions. I loved its color. It's just based on the fact that right now, children nowadays would not find an attraction to this film through the animation style itself. For me, for you, it's beautiful. It's fun.
Yeah.
It's what we grew up with. We love it. But it wouldn't have the same effect with nowadays children. It wouldn't captivate the audience now.
I agree with you there. That's a very valid point. It has aged roughly.
Absolutely.
Directing.
Oh, I got a 1.
I gave it a 1. They did something that not a lot of people would have thought of doing, taking a story of like Treasure Island and making it futuristic and fun. Like the story of Treasure Island is self-explanatory. It's a boy who finds treasure and they're trying to find this treasure island. And the story is basically one for one. It's just in space and there's some different character developments. But I thought they did a really good job. These two directors were very well organized in what they did. There were some plot points that kind of were a little rough in the story, but I really think these guys did a phenomenal job on capturing the adventure and the excitement of what this film was trying to tell.
These two directors wrote this story along with Robert Louis Stevenson, and they knew what it was that they were trying to deliver. They wanted it to be as close to Treasure Island as possible with more of a futuristic, spacey vibe. And it worked. It was an interesting take on it. with the spaceships, and apparently oxygen doesn't matter and gravity. But you know what? They knew what they wanted and they delivered it. They wanted a boy who wanted adventure to find this planet, goes on it, gets a little rough-ended throughout the adventure, but overall finds what he's looking for. And it was accomplished. It was beautiful. Very gorgeous story. Knew how they wanted the characters to be, got their actors to portray those characters in a beautiful format, almost perfectly, to be honest. It was just so beautiful. I just think they did an amazing job. There was what they wanted, got delivered. The only problem with it really was the only reason it flopped was because they decided to release it at a terrible time. They should have waited for after the holidays, but you know, Disney's Disney and they'll release stuff when they want to release it. So unfortunately, it failed in that aspect. But directing wise, it was a beautiful piece.
Attraction.
It's a 1.
I gave it a 1. This is a nostalgic trip. Like, this film, I grew up with it. It's one of my favorites, and I haven't seen this in a long time, so watching the trailer again when we watched it last week just brought so many good memories. It was just so fun. So coming back to this, I was very excited, and with everything we've talked about, it just encapsulates me to want to watch this. And I think I'm going to try to watch this at least once a year for now on, because it's just such a fun film. It's something that you can go back to. It's an hour and a half. It's not that long. So like, it's a quick watch. It's not like 2.5 hours. It's fun. It's exciting, adventurous, and I love the connection that Silver and Jim have.
I agree. Beautiful story, amazing storytelling. Cast was great. It just pulls you in. You don't really get too distracted when watching this film. Beautiful color, amazing storytelling. I don't know how else to put it. It's just a good story. It pulls you in. You enjoy watching it. It's got some comedy. It's got some dark spots. It's just a good children's action adventure. Amazing story, and I loved
Yeah.
it. So, Attraction 100% deserves a 1. It pulls you in. It's an amazing story.
Let's go to dialogue.
I gave that a 0.75
I gave it a 1. Why'd you give it a 0.75?
because there was only one line that really stuck out. There were some funny lines in there, but really the only line that stuck out was when Silver is trying to comfort Jim. When Silver is trying to comfort Jim, his line is, "You got the makings of greatness in ya, but you got to take the helm and chart your own course. Stick to it, no matter the squalls. And when the time comes, you get the chance to really test the cut of your sails and show what you're made of. Well, I hope I'm there catching some of the light coming off you that day." That one line really,
Just hits.
this is when Silver is really connecting with Jim. It's powerful and strong. The reason he brings it out is because Jim is so hard on himself for the possibility that Mr. Arrow died because he didn't secure his lifeline, when that's not true. And Silver knows that, but Jim doesn't. And he's just trying so hard to comfort Jim. And he really does see the greatness in Jim, how strong of a sailor, how strong of an adventurer he could become. Because he's sitting there just before all of this. He's out there training Jim on all this different stuff about being a crew member. And he's picking it up like that. And just everything. He sees huge potential in Jim, but he's also got to keep himself strong and hard and not soft for the crew that Silver has to keep himself strong, hard, and not soft for the crew that he's trying to lead for the mutiny, or else they'll just mutinize against him as well. So he's trying to balance this out, but he loves Jim. 100%. That line just it's strong, especially when it's delivered by Silver, but not by me because I'm not him
Yeah.
for sure. But oof. One other line that I loved is the fact that they brought in a Star Trek reference to a spacey movie. Dr. Doppler's, dang it, Jim, I'm an astronomer, not a doctor. Because in the original Star Treks, it's, damn it, Jim, I'm a doctor, not a physicist. They mixed it up and made it fun and put a little twist to it. I just love it. It's spacey and fun. And so they're like, why not? Let's add in a Star Trek reference just for the heck of it. I love it. But really, that line was just a fun line. The only line that really stuck out was Silver's line. The rest of it just kind of blends together to push the story and plot, in my opinion, to this great story and movie. So I don't feel like it 100% deserved a 1, just enough, just a 0.75 in my opinion.
I truly do like the Star Trek reference. And after that line, he's like, "I'm an astronomer. I am an astronomer, not a doctor. Well, I am a doctor, but not that kind of doctor who just sit here
I'm a doctorate. You can't do anything with a doctorate. It just sits there.
And it's just useless." Ugh. That line, it's so good. It just shows like the weakness that Doppler feels in the situation. The line that Silver gives to encourage Jim, beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. Another line that I really liked. The reason why I like this line is because it develops Silver so much. It's that line I was talking about in character development where it's a lifelong obsession. I'll get over it. It's one of those lines where it's like, it was a lifelong obsession. And he's just deciding, we're good. We're good. We're done. I'll just figure it out. It's like, oh, man. He understands the responsibility he has. And I really did like there was the confrontation that Jim and Silver had. Right when they were like, "Hey, Jim boy, let's talk." And I just love the intensity of the lines that were given. Like, Jim was like, "We'll try to find it without my map by Thunder."
Yeah.
It was just so good. And you could see that Silver was like, "You're messing with the wrong sailor here." It's like, it's just, you can feel in the lines, the intensities too. You can feel love because once he turns around, you see Silver like get all sad and like solemn. It's just overall, I think this for the adventure film they made, I felt like the dialogue was well there. Yes, there wasn't a lot from like the crew members. Funny part, I loved when Doppler spoke in flatulence. I took 2 years of it in high school. It was like he was like just trying to just trying to do all the noises. He's like, took it 2 years in high school. Cool. Brace yourself, doctor. It's just like little quick lines. It wasn't like anything profound. Like besides Silver's line was the most profound, and there wasn't really anything that was like that profound in this film. But the little bits and pieces that gave a little comedy here and there, it was just so good. So for me, I liked it enough to give it a 1 because I felt the joy in it. I felt the fun.
You know, I think I'll agree with you on this. I will bump it to a 1. There's enough comedy. There's enough little bits and pieces, banter back and forth. I feel like it. I can justify a 1 for this.
Yay! Let's talk about scenery. I gave scenery a 1.
I also gave scenery a 1.
I loved the space atmosphere it gave. I just love the outer space. It looked so colorful, it looked so clean, just vibrance. I loved when they were going through the portal and they were showing off all these places that they could click into the map. He was like, it was like the first one was like It was this galaxy that was halfway across the whole thing. And it was like, it just looked so breathtaking to see it in such a large scale. And then I loved the black hole look of it. It was just so intense. You could feel the intensity with the scenery around it. And I did like the way his mom's shop looked like. I like the eeriness of it because it's like she's struggling. It's showing the struggle of what it looked like. And I just loved overall this vast world that could still be explored so much more if we could actually get a sequel. It left it so open so you could see way more of this galaxy. I just loved it.
I have to completely agree. There's not much more you can say. It's just absolutely gorgeous throughout the whole film. They're on the ship, they're gliding through the night sky, stars everywhere. They're going through like a Milky Way kind of looking something, and you can reach out and it's like touching the clouds, but you're not. It's just a mist of something. I'm not sure what, but it's just absolutely gorgeous throughout. Every planet structure they went to, even when they went to Ben's planet, the when it opened up the core, it's just metal. It's a giant machine-like planet that was developed by Flint to make it so he could bounce back and forth wherever he went through the portal. There's just so much beautiful scenery in this that giving it less than a 1 is crazy. There's so much vibrance and color, and it's just gorgeous. It didn't stay in one place. It was literally an adventure movie. They were everywhere, and it was gorgeous. Yes. I loved it. Any less than a 1 makes no sense.
Exactly. I totally agree there. Also, just a little side note, he was talking about the planet, the robot. I loved when he talked about it. Like he opened up, I just got this little
I'll just go sneak out the back door.
I'll sneak out the back door.
Back door?
Yeah, the miles and miles of machinery in the planet.
In the core of the planet.
Doc, I'll be back. I'm like, where are you going?
They don't know. Down.
Finally, let's talk about the recommend.
Oh, that's a 1, easy.
Straight 1, my guy. This one is such a nostalgic trip. I recommend this to anyone. Mind you, it is dated. Like the animation is dated, but I still think there are kids today who would love to see a story of action adventure, a relationship grown in just practical like bond. It was just so good. I loved the story. I love the characters. I love the scenery. It's a fun time. It's an hour and a half, hour and 35 technically, but it's still a time that I think you will not regret. It's so good.
If you're looking for a family film, something fun to watch, you're on Disney Plus, you're just browsing through something to watch, go to Treasure Planet. It's worth it. It's fun, beautiful characters, amazing development, just strong storytelling. It's so vibrant, so colorful, a beautiful adventure. You will not regret it. Hour and a half of your time, easy peasy. You're looking for a movie anyway. It's great. Go watch it. You'll love it.
You know, all you people who listen to watch those Disney princess movies, you're getting kind of tired of them. Come on, you go watch Jim Boy. Jim Boy is so good.
Agreed.
So I stuck with a 9 through this whole review.
Mine went up to a 9.
Yay, we tied.
We tied.
Yay. So as we wrap up this week's episode of Nerd Talker Podcast, I would like to talk about next week's episode. We are going to be watching the 1987 war-depicted film Hamburger Hill. Ben, watching this trailer, I'm curious. Because I'm not really into Vietnam War. I was never really into that as a kid. Never liked the 50s and 60s like history class time because I was just I got bored, in my opinion. I was more of a World War II kid, but this looks intriguing. It looks fascinating. I'm very excited to see what this is and like what it's about. It looks like it's about a certain war in Vietnam, and I'm pretty excited to maybe see some action. It looks like there's a lot of action, a lot of death, and the voice in the background is like 600 tried to go up, only a third of them went down. So I'm gonna give this a 6.5.
I have very mixed feelings on this trailer. I honestly have no idea what to expect here. Vietnam, I love based on true event films. I love learning about war. World War II is my favorite one, but I'll happily learn about everything, every war that we've been involved in, or it doesn't matter. I love it. It just seems to me that this movie is so dated that I'm not sure that I'm going to really enjoy it, to be honest. It just doesn't seem like one that I'm going to connect with. I want to try, I want to give it the benefit of the doubt, so I'm going to solely based on the trailer, because I have never seen this film. I've never even heard of it until Josh suggested it. So I am going to give it the benefit of the doubt because it is a based on true event film. It is a war film. I'm going to give it a 7 and see where it goes from there. Hopefully it has a positive reaction in my eyes, but we'll see.
Yes. So as we wrap up, I'd like to thank everyone for tuning into this week's episode of Nerd Taco Podcast. If you'd like to follow us, we're on Instagram, Threads, and Twitter at nerd_taku_podcast. We are also on YouTube under Kingdom Notes Studios. My name is Eli.
I'm Ben.
Thanks, guys, for tuning in. Have a good week.
Thank you very much. Can't wait to see you again next week.